published 1911 EDT, the 16th of September 2017, updated 2055 EDT, the 16th of September 2017. Mothers making bargain basement British school uniforms in sweltering factories are being paid just 25p an hour, a Mail on Sunday investigation has found. The poverty wages leave many of the women in Bangladesh making the clothes for Tesco, Asda and other leading chains unable to send their own children to school. Some of the mothers are forced to live hundreds of miles away from the families and can only afford to make the journey twice a year. Our investigation comes after parents in this country snapped up school uniforms costing just a few pounds ahead of the start of the new school year this month. Mothers making bargain basement British school uniforms in sweltering factories are being paid just 25p an hour, a Mail on Sunday investigation has found. A Bangladeshi garments worker sits inside her home and poses for a photo. Our journalists travel to Bangladesh to find out about the conditions in the factories where the garments are churned out for stores including Aldi and Next. They discover red mothers living with their entire families in only-room tin shacks in slums. A female worker who had to take her bright 14-year-old son out of school to work on a tea stall to boost the family's meager income. Employees complaining of having to work grueling 12-hour shifts in stifling conditions. The Bangladesh national minimum wage paid to many of the women is barely a third of what they need to live, according to campaigners. The poverty wages leave many of the women in Bangladesh making the clothes for Tesco, Asda and other leading chains unable to send their own children to school. At one factory, called Naz, where Aldi polo shirts costing just £1.95 for two in the UK are made, a young mother told us she is paid the legal minimum wage of 5,300 Bangladeshi taka £47.46 a month. She also gets an extra 500 taka £4.48 as a punctuality bonus, but misses out if she is more than 5 minutes late on more than 3 days in a month. Her timesheet, seen by the MOS, included a column for lateness, recorded down to the second. The basic salary equates to just 25p an hour, based on a 6-day, 48-hour week, but many of the employees work long hours of overtime to boost the pay packets. Many of the women we spoke to are migrant laborers forced to live hundreds of miles away from their children who they can only afford to see twice a year. Other workers at the Naz factory producing Aldi clothes in Mirzapur, 40 miles from the capital Dhaka, complained of being made to work grueling 12-hour shifts and up to 74 hours a week, more than the legal maximum of 60 hours, in stifling heat without enough fans. Aldi announced an immediate investigation into the workers' allegations last night and said they would launch a full audit into the factory. The same factory is used by Tesco for other garments, and according to the Naz website, Tesco conferred an outstanding partnership in corporate social responsibility on the firm last year. Some of the mothers are forced to live hundreds of miles away from the families and can only afford to make the journey twice a year. Managers at one of a number of factories around Dhaka visited by the MOS told us they would like to pay workers more but were unable to because retailers insist on paying rock-bottom rates at every stage of the supply chain. One mother, whose 10-year-old daughter has frequently missed school because of the cost, told us to hear that a school shirt costs the same as a cup of coffee in England makes me very surprised. For British parents who buy these cheap uniforms, I would like them to realise how hard we work. If the companies charge just a little more for the shirts, we would have better lives. These women make bargain school uniforms for British children, supplied to Tesco, Asda, Aldo, Next and other leading chains. It would be better for our children too. Our lives are very hard. Dominique Muller, policy manager for anti-sweatshop campaigners Labour Behind the Label, said in Bangladesh, the minimum wage is far below the UN figure for the poverty line wage. That in itself is quite incredible, because these garment workers are paid really low wages. They find themselves doing extra hours where they can't, doing as much overtime as possible. This is a poverty wage. They are unable to send the kids to school, unable to save. Many don't have proper insurance, so some may get into debt if something such as a medical problem arises. Earlier this year, there were protests around increasing the minimum wage in Bangladesh, and around 3,500 people were dismissed from their jobs. Union officials in the factories were also arrested and charged for a variety of offences. There are various calculations for what constitutes the living wage in Bangladesh. but the lowest is around 15,000 taka £134.31 a month, 70p an hour. The retailers are complicit in keeping down the wages. In fast fashion, they really push the supplier with deadlines for a quick turnover and get as much profit as they can from them. Suppliers often use short-term contracts to get an order completed and keep the costs down by keeping labor costs down. I have destroyed my boy's future to feed the family at the Ananta factory in Ashulia, 15 miles north of Dhaka. We were met by Kaiser Hussain, a senior director of production. He spoke proudly of his factory, and explained the safety procedures at length. Workers at the factory, which makes boys' grey trousers costing from £8 to £13 at Next, receive at least the minimum wage, he said, but skilled operatives earn more. Machine operator Nashrun, 30, earns £47.90 a month, just over 25p an hour basic. She recently took son Manan, 14, out of school to work. He now runs a roadside tea stall for 16 hours a day to boost the family income. She said, I feel I have destroyed my son's future. If they gave me a bigger salary, then of course I would put him back in school. I want him to be educated. A Next spokesperson said it is a key priority for Next to ensure it trades ethically, sources responsibly and works to assure the safety and human rights of workers within its direct global supply chain. Next's principal standards incorporated into its code of practice include no child labor, safe and healthy working conditions, no forced labor, fair wages and benefits and lawful working conditions. Since 2010, Next has audited Ananta garments 10 times, the last time being in April 2017. No contraventions to any legal standards of payments have ever been found. Shanty town where armed guards stalk a Bangladeshi garments worker who works at DIRD's finishing section, sits inside of his home and poses for photo at Sripur, Ghazipur, Bangladesh. The DIRD composite textiles factory is on a busy street in Ghazipur, Bangladesh, but the tall, ominous building is behind large gates manned by guards. The Moss approached workers taking the lunch break a short distance down the road from the factory, which makes Tesco FF school jumpers which sell for £5 in the UK. Soon, senior staff demanded we stop speaking to employees. Many workers live in a shanty town nearby, with chickens roaming the muddy wasteland. Within 5 minutes of our reporter's arrival in the living quarters, 2 security guards carrying batons arrived. Shamim, 30, earns £64.47 a month, 34p an hour as a machine operator. He said it is hard to provide for his wife and son, 12. My son stays at my home village. I miss him a lot. If I earned more, he would stay close to me, he said. Tesco said we continue to work with our suppliers to improve wages and would take firm action against any abuse or underpayment. DIRD said we refute your implication that the workforce are mistreated. We provide higher salary than most of the factories. The company said employees' children were offered music lessons and daycare. I wish I could see my son more. But the £6 ticket is too much. The sprawling Naz factory in Mirzapur, which makes boys' polo shirts that Aldi sells for £1.95 for 2, is set in a forest at the bottom of a muddy track behind large gates. Despite legal limits of 60 working hours a week, the Moss discovered workers who had toiled for up to 74 hours across 7 days. One of them was 25-year-old Juma, not her real name, who earns the minimum legal wage of just 25p an hour as a helper and lives with her husband in a only-room tin shack. Her bed is a threadbare mat on the dirty concrete floor. Her 4-year-old son lives with relatives and it is a long journey, costing more than £6 to visit him. As a result, she can only see him twice a year. She said, I really have to consider when I spend money on it, and I wish I could see him more. It is hard. I try to save for his future education, but there is really anything to put away, an Aldi spokesperson said last night. Suppliers are contractually required to comply with national laws and all the social standards in production. We will visit this facility again and carry out a full audit to investigate these allegations. The cost we agree with our suppliers is not influenced in any way by our retail price. Mr. Shahir, NAZ's assistant head of operations, said our salaries are in accordance with the government minimum wage and we pay workers better than most factories. He claimed salaries increase by 5% every year. When we told him we had seen a worker's wage slip detailing a 12-hour day including lunch, he said our employees only work 10-hour days including overtime. He said he would inquire into the individual case. It takes a day and a night to visit my girl. Huge Babylon complex lies on a busy main road in Mirzapur. Inside, thousands of workers sweat away making school shirts for Georgia Asda. The Moss watched as the garments were sewn together on the production line, under signs with the Asda logo. Executive Director Mohammed Hassan boasted of their glowing medical facilities, assistance to improve workers' literary skills and child care facilities. But outside the factory walls, life for the workers is a different story. Rina, 22, has been working as a helper at Babylon for a year, but receives a salary of just 5,550 taka a month, £49.69, or just under 26p an hour. She is married and lives 25 minutes away in a only-roomed home with her husband. To save money, her 7-year-old daughter lives far away with relatives. It takes a day and a night if she wants to go and visit, costing £9 for the journey, so she can only afford to visit her child once every 6 months. She said, "I would really like to see her more, but I can't see my salary getting higher because the pay for a helper is fixed. I also have her school fees to pay, which costs 500 taka a month." Mr. Hassan said last night minimum wages of 5,300 taka are only applicable for helpers or entry-level workers. The total of entry-level workers is less than 10%. He added that employees receive attendance bonuses, overtime payments and other benefits, and that entry workers can earn £54 a month, 28p an hour as a result. He said it was difficult to negotiate with the UK on price because if I don't accept, someone else gets it. No one wants a factory without business. And as the spokesperson said, we expect our suppliers to treat the workers with respect and dignity, and we take allegations regarding mistreatment of workers seriously. We continuously re-examine our efforts to drive responsibility in our global supply chain, including in relation to worker conditions, voluntary labor, foreign workers and wages.